Warfront announced 6 vehicles on a decal. Today, we will go into them all with different sources. These sources are German Wikipedia for the Su-30, FA-18, Rapier and Richelieu, English Wikipedia for the XM246 and Badger, the War Thunder forum for the XM246, and Reddit for the XM246. We will start with the Su-30, following with the FA-18, XM246, Rapier, Badger, and finally the Richelieu. Let's go! The version we are likely getting is the fighter bomber variant originally made for the Indian Air Force, later adopted by Russia as the Su-30SM. You can tell by the canards. Only the Indian MKI and its Russian counterpart have them. Now, if it's added as a strike aircraft, it will probably go to Britain after the Tornado GR4, and for Russia it could come before the Su-34. If they classify it as a fighter, which I doubt, it might follow the Su-27SM for Russia, and for Britain maybe after the Tornado F3. Now let's get to some stats. The Su-30SM has weaker engines than the Su-27SM. Its engines produce 130.74 kN of thrust compared to the Su-27SM's 132.44 kN. But it's got canards, bigger but thinner wings, and 3D thrust vectoring if the game implements that. This could make it really good in dogfights, though it's heavier and slightly less agile due to its 2-pilot configuration. It probably carries up to 8 missiles and comes with a PISA radar. That's an electronic system which is a lot faster than older mechanical radars. Now for ground ordnance, unless they add radar guided weapons like the KH-31A or KH-35E, both designed for ships, the Su-30SM likely won't have much new to offer over the Su-34. These weapons probably won't come, so the Su-30SM will mainly carry the same payload as the Su-34. Comparing it to the Su-34, the Su-30SM is shorter, has thinner wings, and weaker engines, producing 130.74 kN compared to the Su-34's 137.21 kN. Payload capacity will likely be the same, but the Su-34 still has the edge with TV and laser guided weapons. This also goes for air-to-air weapons. If Britain gets the Su-30 MKI, it could be a useful addition. It might offer more self-guided weapons compared to the Tornado GR4 and Eurofighter, which are focused more on laser guided options. But that's it for the Su-30. Let's continue with the FA-18. FA-18, our beloved multi-role carrier-based fighter. The replacement for the A7 and F4 Phantom II. Not developed as a replacement for the F-14, rather a complement to it, replacing old and ineffective jets with a newer, more effective jet. Let's get into it. First, we need to identify the variant. The teaser decal doesn't resemble a 2-seater, ruling out the FA-18B, D, F, and the EA-18. It also looks like a Legacy Hornet and it's way smaller, ruling out the Super Hornet, the FA-18E. This leaves the FA-18A and FA-18C. The FA-18A can't carry AIM-120 missiles, making it an unlikely choice unless it's intended as a Su-33 competitor. Alternatively, both the A and C variants could be added, giving the US 2 new planes, but that seems improbable. The FA-18C supports more advanced weaponry than the A variant. It can carry up to 10 AIM-120s and 2 AIM-9s for a total of 12 missiles, 6 AIM-7s or even a maximum of 10 AIM-9s. While the AIM-120 and AIM-9 are somewhat underwhelming at top tier, this makes the FA-18C a serious contender. For air to ground, it could carry up to 4 AGM-65, AGBU-10s or 12s, or JDAMs like the GBU-31 or GBU-38. This would not replace ground strikers. The FA-18C would also feature the ANALR-67 radar warning system already present on the F-14 and AV-8B. Additionally, it could carry up to 120 countermeasures. The FA-18A has the ANALR-50 with the same amount of countermeasures. Under optimal conditions, its top speed is Mach 1.8, comparable to the Su-34. However, reaching the speed in-game, it will likely be rare. Its engines output 79 kN of thrust each with afterburners. How does it compare to other US jets? Since the FA-18 is smaller than the F-15, it is also lighter, which could provide an advantage in dogfighting. Being a naval fighter, it likely accelerates better than the F-16. However, once the F-16 reaches top speed, it should outpace the FA-18. Furthermore, if it's not the FA-18A variant, it can carry more missiles than any other top-tier US plane, cementing its role as a missile slinger. In conclusion, here are my predictions. The F-16C will continue to reign as the king of US dogfighters. The F-15E will dominate in ground striking. The FA-18C will excel as a missile slinger and in the all-rounder role. The F-15C might rival the FA-18 in terms of the all-rounder role. If we get the FA-18 F-18A, it might be introduced as a squadron vehicle similar to the Su-33 for Russia, as both are carrier-based planes at comparable BRs. If it's the F-18C, it would likely follow the F-14 with a BR of 13.7 or possibly 14. Outside the US, potential operators might include Sweden via Finland or Germany through a Swiss subtree. Both nations would receive the F-18C, though for Germany, this remains less likely at the moment. The F-18A could go to the UK through Australia, and that wraps it up for the F-18. Hoorah! Next up, XM246. The competitor of the legendary M247, known by some as the American G-Part, the XM246. Let's break it down and get into it. It will use the M48 hull, which is already in many tech trees. For an anti-air, it's decent, nothing groundbreaking, but solid enough. As for firepower, it's armed with two 35mm Oerlikons, the same guns used in the G-Part, Type 87 and ITPSV Leopard. These cannons are great, offering high firepower and shooting faster than the M247. They can carry APDS rounds as well as regular API and HEI rounds. It could also come with a laser rangefinder, which would definitely make it more effective. Now, range is tricky to compare. Surprisingly, even though the XM246 has a smaller caliber than the M247, its rounds have a higher muzzle velocity, which could mean better range. It might also get HEVT rounds, which are time-fused and would set it apart from the G-Part, Type 87 and ITPSV Leopard. Since the US has an anti-air gap between 7.3 and 9.0, it's likely to be 8.3, where the G-Part and Type 87 are already placed. Speed-wise, it's hard to say for sure, but from what I've seen, it will likely be a bit slower than the M247. And yes, as you can see, it's going to be huge, no surprises there. But here's a quick summary. It's armed with the same cannons as the G-Part, Type 87 and ITPSV Leopard. If you know how to use those, you'll be fine with this. It fires faster than the M247 with a higher muzzle velocity. Ammo should include API-T, HEI-T and APDS. Might get HEVT, which would make it unique, but it'll bump up the BR. Probably slower than the M247, okayish armor, but it's huge. Likely to have a laser rangefinder. As for its place in the tech tree, my guess is it will be 8.3 to fill the gap between 7.3 and 9.0, and rank 6 with the G-Part, Type 87 and ITPSV Leopard. That's all I could find on it so far. So let's continue with the RAPIA now. The widely used surface-to-air missile system, the British tracked RAPIA. Let's get into it. There are two possibilities based on the two Wikipedias. Firstly, the German Wikipedia states its speed as 670 meters per second, only 5 meters per second slower than the Roland 3 system, though in-game the Roland 3 is 570 meters per second. The English Wikipedia on the other hand states its speed as 1300 meters per second, which would be around as fast as the ADATS missile. They also state different ranges. The German Wiki states a little less than 7 kilometers, while the English says a little more than 8 kilometers. I think that's due to the two versions of it, the RAPIA 2000, a modernization program in the 1990s, and the ordinary RAPIA. So which will we get then? Well, the RAPIA 2000 ended service in 1996. The regular RAPIA, though, is, of course, way older. But I will get back to this later. Many countries use the system, such as the United States, many Middle Eastern and African countries, Turkey, Switzerland and of course Britain. But only two added on a vehicle as far as I found. These are Britain with its tracked RAPIA system and Iran with its M548 modified with the RAPIA system. Now, getting back to which version we will actually get, like I just said, two countries had it. We probably won't see Iran's anti-air join, but either way, this tracked RAPIA was developed in 1974, so long before the RAPIA 2000 program. Of course, Gaijin could give it good missiles anyway, but I don't think so. This would mean we would get around 670 meters per second fast missile with 7 kilometers range. This anti-air is also going to be laser fired like most other anti-airs, but anyway, speed and range are not everything an anti-air has to offer. I hate Roland 3, and it's not because of the range, I quite like that, but there's something else wrong with it. It is quite slow, which I find annoying but acceptable on that BR, yet it does not pull enough enough G, so if the plane just flies some circles while coming towards you, your missile can't react and will fly past him. The problem is, I could not find anything that would let me at least guess a possible G-force amount, so I would just need to assume. It will probably be rank 7 on BR 10.0 or 10.3. The missile, which is faster than Roland 3 with less range, would fit into that BR. Thus, I assume it would have around 20 to 25 G, but that's basically all about it. So let's continue with the Badger. The most modern IFV of South Africa, the Badger. So let's get into it. The Badger IFV is an up-armored version of the Finnish Patria AMV. While the Patria AMV itself was designed in the early 2000s, the South African Badger variant was designed in the 2010s as a more modern version. We could see the Patria AMV in the Swedish and Japanese tech trees, but the Badger IFV would most likely be a British vehicle. Now, about its ammo, it's a safe bet that it will use AP-FSD as rounds. But how fast those rounds will be and how much ammo they will penetrate, no one knows. I guess around 140mm? That seems pretty okay for that BR. As for its weight, the Badger clocks in at around 28 tons with a 540 horsepower engine. It can hit a top speed of 104 km/h, which is ridiculously fast for an IFV. It has a 3-man crew, being the driver, commander and gunner. That could make it a bit more vulnerable, but its speed and lightweight will balance it out. We don't know its fire rate, but since it's a modern vehicle, it should have stabilizers and solid thermals with a laser rangefinder and basically anything a top tier IFV has, which means we can probably expect it to land at rank 6 or 7 in the British tech tree, likely after the Desert Warrior. It could either be a folder vehicle or just a slight BR increase. Comparing it to the Vilkas, the Badger is 1 km/h faster. The Badger may be lighter and faster, but the Vilkas has the edge in acceleration due to its stronger engine. The Vilkas has spike missiles, but the Badger doesn't, so I'd expect it to be at BR 10.3, with great thermals, stabilizers and solid ammo for flanking. The fire rate should be about 4 rounds per second like the Vilkas. Oh, and by the way, the Vilkas is around 37 tons heavy compared to the Badger's 28. So I couldn't find more information about the vehicle, so that's already it for the Badger IFV. Finally, the last vehicle, or rather ship, the Richelieu. The French battleship that served on both sides of the Second World War. The infamous Richelieu. So let's get into it. First up, the Richelieu will have a displacement of 37,850 tons, which puts it on the lower average side of top tier battleships. It could house up to 2,134 personnel with 330mm thick armor in the middle of the ship and around 177mm thick armor on its ends. The main turrets had 430mm armor thickness on the front, 300mm on the sides, 270mm on the back and 170mm on the roof. Additionally, it had torpedo bulkheads with armor ranging between 30 to 50mm. This makes its armor pretty effective overall, especially over long ranges. For its primary armament, the Richelieu had 8 380mm cannons with 4 cannons per turret. The muzzle velocity was around 820 meters per second, and these guns had a staggering range of 41 kilometers. Crazy to think that ships could engage each other from such distances, though today's missiles make it seem less impressive. Its secondary armament consisted of 9 152mm cannons mounted in 3 turrets, each housing 3 cannons. These could serve both as anti-air and for engaging smaller ships. With a muzzle velocity of 870 meters per second, they could reach distances of 26 kilometers. As for anti-air capabilities, the Richelieu was equipped with 12 100mm cannons, arranged in 6 turrets each with 2 guns. These had a muzzle velocity of 780 meters per second and could reach up to 10 kilometers into the air. Under ideal conditions, they could fire 10 rounds per minute. Beyond that, it also had 8 37mm guns housed in 4 dual mounts and 24 13.2mm machine guns for additional close-range anti-air defense. The ship even came equipped with scouting planes. In terms of speed, the Richelieu could reach 32 knots or about 59 km/h. Now, my best guess is that it will be a regular battleship with a BR of 7.0, most likely coming after the Dunkirk battleship in the French tech tree. But that's about everything relevant I could find on the ship. Oh, but please take everything I've said with a grain of salt. Not because this information might not be accurate, but Gaijin could always change things. Also, I've never really played top tier ships, only lower tier ones, so I can't judge too well what's good or not. Still, based on comparisons with other ships using the War Thunder wiki, it does seem solid. Anyway, that was it for this video. If you enjoyed this is probably what most of my content will look like, and from here on it will only improve. Please leave some feedback in the comments, and if you really want to support me, subscribe. It helps very much. Thank you and goodbye.